All right, here's Clark. Well, let's get started. When Anna first saw me on the screen, I was identified as the Castleton Community Center. And I had to explain why that was, because I don't have a paid account. And now paid accounts require this passcode, which gets sent to the owner of the account, and that can be complicated. So the Castleton Community Center not only allows me to use their account, but they promise to be hanging out at their computer when the passcode comes in. So I thank Lori Nauer for that. Let's quickly do some introductions, since I think most of us haven't seen each other in a while, and some of us not at all. So on my screen, Anna, you're first. You're muted. You're unmuted. There you go. Can you tell us who you are and where you're from?
I am a 7th and 8th grade, well, this year, 7th grade teacher from Camel's Hump Middle School in Richmond, Vermont.
And how many times have you done throughout the classroom?
This will be my 2nd time, and I haven't done it in 4 or 5 years.
All right. So you bring some experience, but from a while back.
Yes,
Rob?
but it was incredibly successful the first time.
Oh, good for you. How about you, Rob?
Hi, I'm Rob Kramer. I am with Greater Upper Valley Trout Unlimited, and I'm involved in the TIC program for, I think, 8 years now, 7 years now. Joe lets me help out a little bit with pre-cycling, and I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you.
Yeah, and if it involves science, I'm always happy that Rob's on the call, because I was a psychology major. All right.
Sorry, I'm a microbiologist by training. So,
Ari?
Ari, yeah.
Ari.
I teach at the Central Vermont Career Center Natural Resources Program. It's my first year with Trout in the classroom, and my pre-cycling is not going as expected. So I'll touch it on that.
Well, it's good that you're with us, and we'll have to put you up first because Rob has to leave before this session is over.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Brian.
I'm Brian Crane, and I'm the principal of the Otter Creek Academy. This will be my 3rd time doing the program, and I did it first as a science teacher at Rutland Town School, and now I'm doing it as a whole class experience, a whole school experiential learning project. So let's hope I don't have a big show, because the littles will be disappointed.
Yeah, you'll have a lot of people to hug if that goes wrong. All right, who's next over here? I'm getting a lot of people coming in. That would be Kim.
Hi, I am Kim Faber, and I teach at Eshaby. I teach 5th grade, actually literacy and a little bit of science. And this is my 3rd year.
Welcome back, Kim. Christina?
Hi, I'm Christina Wadsworth, and I teach a 4th and 5th grade combined class at Weybridge Elementary. We're next to Middlebury, and this is my 1st year. And I really don't want to have a lot of hugs at the end of the year, so I'm hoping I get it right.
Right. Nick?
Nick Ditchios, Oxbow High School in Bradford, Vermont. This will be my 1st year doing this program, teaching 9th grade earth science, but hopefully getting some other classes involved in this as well.
Nice. Val?
Hi, I'm Val Calzini. I'm the kindergarten teacher in Cornwall. This is the 4th year I've done this.
So you and Weybridge are not far apart.
We are not. We will connect, because I've had I don't want to say it out loud, but I've had success. We've let go a lot of little fish, and they've always looked really healthy. So I think some of it has to do with well water. Well water, I think, It's really helpful. You don't have to stress out about all the chlorine and stuff. So, Christine, I'm here.
Sam?
Let's see here. All right, can y'all hear me?
We can.
I'm Sam Hecklow. I teach 7th and 9th grade science at Thetford Academy, and this is my first year doing Trout in the Classroom.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
We have a VINS representative. I think that might be Hannah.
Yes, this is Hannah here, and I'm going to stay off screen, but I am here to hear more about how this works, and eventually we'll be supporting all of you in doing Trout in the Classroom.
And finally, Caitlin. Well, no, not finally. Next to finally, Caitlin.
Hi, sorry, I'm just here to listen. I can't really talk right now. Sorry, what were the introduction questions?
If you could just tell us your name and the school that you're at and whether you've done Trout in the Classroom before.
My name, sorry. I was saying I'm just here to listen. I'm homesick with a toddler next to me. My name is Caitlin Gurnett. I'm at ADL in Essex Junction. And this is, I think, my 4th year doing Trout in the Classroom.
Well, thank you for joining us even though you're sick, as am I. I've got COVID. So Clark, I skipped over you by accident. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, Clark Hamadon with the Mad Dog chapter of Trout Unlimited. And I think this is probably a year 6 or 7 of working with the Trout in the Classroom schools in our chapter region.
Well, thank you for joining us. So now, who was it that said it's not going as you expected? That's Ari. Ari?
Ari,
sorry.
Yeah.
Tell us why.
So last week, we've got our tank set up with Clark actually a couple weeks ago. We tested our chiller, got that going well. So we got it up to 75 degrees. We added the night out, we added the ammonium, and we followed the instructions to get to like 5 parts per million of ammonium. But on the test strip, it kind of doesn't really distinguish between 3 parts per million and 6 parts per million. So it's showing up closer to the 6 parts per million. And it seems like that can be too high of a starting point for the bacteria. So I tried adding more bacteria. I'm still seeing like 6 parts per million of ammonium and no nitrates and nitrites. So I think I need to do like a water change to lower the ammonium. And like, I just wanted to figure out like, what should I aim for parts per million for ammonium before adding the bacteria back in?
Ari, I just want to jump in and just say I'm in the exact same position. I have the exact same problem with my tank.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know if it's like something we can also maybe firm up in the manual, because I thought I followed the directions, but it's not working out well.
Well, I'm going to hand this to Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Ari. It sounds like you're figuring things out very, very well. It sounds like you did have too much ammonia to start, and that just the bacteria can never take off. Is your KH stable and your pH?
Yeah, and I guess the KH should be around 150, right? So we did add baking soda, right, when we added the ammonium and the I don't know if we should have had more time. The pH is right around 7.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, so the good news is, as you said, you can probably do a 50% water change here, and that would get you down around 3 to 4 parts per million, and re-add the night out too, and then wait 24 hours. That first part of the cycle goes pretty fast from ammonia to nitrite. So if the bacteria are alive, they'll get going pretty fast, and you should see nitrite within 24 hours. So 50% water change, test the ammonia to make sure it's still there where you think it should fall, right around that 3 square at that point, and then add your night out too, and that should get things going. But please keep me posted, email me. I really just think, yeah, you're smart. You overshot a little bit.
What would it mean? I was saying earlier that I'm in that same boat, Rob, and my my pH is seemingly around like 8.59, KH around like 180, 200. Would that be an indication that I should do something other than just a 50% water change?
No, I mean, that might become an issue later after you have after the eggs hatch. The higher the pH, the more toxic the ammonium becomes. So I guess, Sam, in your boat, it would be really important to pre-cycle and get this right. Because at that higher pH, if you get any ammonia in the tank, it's going to be more toxic at that pH to the fish. So I would say let's try and get this right to start, and you'll be fine from there. But right now, you don't need to do anything different than Ari. Just go ahead and do a 50% water change, and add check the ammonia to make sure it's around 3. And go ahead and add some fresh night out too. And then both of you just email me at 24 hours later with your test results.
Okay.
And just again,
Rob,
temperature, it sounds like you have the temperature up, at 75. That's really important early. Let's get those bacteria growing. You're both using well water or treated water?
I'm using treated tap water.
Okay, as long as it's treated, that's okay. I mean, if it's untreated, you could get some toxicity there that could also kill the bacteria from the chlorine. But if you're treating it with the tap water conditioner, then you should be fine.
Do we need to wait a certain amount of time for that treatment to work before adding it to the tank? It didn't say anything on that.
No, if you're adding conditioner, those chelators work instantly. So if you're not using a chelator and you're letting the water sit out, I always recommend at least 2 days for the ammonia to go away, or the chloride, sorry.
I've always assumed, Rob, that it was advisable to stir the water after you've added the water treatment to it. Is that
I always add it while I'm filling the bucket, whatever, just so it circulates in the tank. But it works instantly. That chemistry's fast.
Great. And to Sam's point, my understanding has been that high KH is almost always good. Is that true?
Oh yeah, that's what you want. That really will stabilize the pH. So he should be fine. It shouldn't get up any higher than what he's at. The cycling actually tends to lower the pH. That's what we worry about. If your KH is low, what will happen is as the cycle goes, your pH will just crash as those hydrogen ions get released during the different oxidation reduction reactions that are happening. So that KH is really important to prevent that from happening. So those are good. Those are both good KH values.
Who else has a pre-cycling question? Kim.
I do. So can I give you my numbers and you tell me what you think? Ammonia today was 0.5 and the NO2 was 10 and NO3 was 200. pH is 8. KH is 180 as of today.
So I have good news and not so good news for you. So the good news is you have all the bacteria in there, which is great. So congratulations. Like that's awesome. The bad news is you're going to probably have to do a pretty substantial water change here. So part of me now hearing this, I'm wondering if the Dr. Tim's this year is a little more potent than in years past, because that's a lot of nitrate. So your bacteria were really working hard, and the fact that you got them to work is fantastic. But you have a lot of nitrite and nitrate in there that you got to get out. So I'm going to have you do a 75% water change.
Okay.
And then when you do that water change, go ahead and add fresh night out too. But the good news is you do have all the bacteria. Your tank is, the reactions are going. So that's great.
Okay. Thank you.
But before we add the eggs, we want to get the nitrite down and the nitrate down. And the water change should do that for you. And then from now, you won't need to add any more ammonia. You can just add a little bit of fish food over the holiday break, and that'll keep the bacteria fed.
Okay.
You're basically there. You basically have your cycled tank.
Okay. Thanks.
Congrats.
Yes.
I have a couple questions. So the last time I did this, pre-cycling wasn't a thing. So this will be my first time pre-cycling. I haven't actually started yet pre-cycling. I was going to start today. And so one question is, I'm looking at my ammonia strips, and they're the ammonia strips that I have from last year, the people who did it last year. They look green already. Is that supposed to be the case? Or are they supposed to be white on both sides?
I can't answer that question.
Yeah,
I don't
also-
think they're supposed to be green.
Okay. Well,
Mine are starting out yellow, and on the bottle it says to open it, take one out, and quickly and tightly reseal it. So I wonder if it got exposed. And
I think it got exposed to oxygen.
okay, I think, yeah, because they are all yellow. You can't tell that, but they're all yellow on one side and white on the other. Okay, noted. And then the second thing was, I just heard you give the advice to Kim that, so let's say that my pre-cycling goes great, starting after I get some strips. Over the holiday break, it's gonna need to be fed.
Yes, so once the bacteria in there, they have to have food to eat, otherwise they'll die. And so what we usually recommend is you can, if you're not going to access the school, one trick you can use is they sell these vacation food packs. They're blocks that just slowly release a little food each day. You can buy one of those for your tank size. They have them by tank size, and they're pretty cheap. They're $6 or $7, and then you can plop one of those in when you go over break, and that'll keep the bacteria fed.
Okay. All right.
Alternatively, if you're going to be around, you pop into the school. If you went in every other day and dropped a little bit of fish food, or every 2 days probably get away with. You just dropped a little fish food in the tank. That also would be sufficient.
Okay.
So think of these bacteria as your first critters.
Yes, exactly.
I have a question if possible.
Yes, Brian.
So I filled my tank last Monday. It was the Monday, and then I proceeded to get sick all week. So my water's been sitting there for a while untested, and then I come in today, and so I don't have my numbers, and I haven't had a chance to test. But is there a problem with the water that's been sitting there untreated, or should I start over?
No, the water's fine. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Just out of curiosity, has your filter been running?
The filter was not running, but it is now. Yeah. It is running now.
Yeah.
So,
great.
And the water looked okay. I didn't see, so, but I was just wondering, and I'm hopefully not too late for the pre-cycling to be effective, because I didn't pre-cycle before either, and this is new for me.
Yeah, I think you're fine. Other questions? So are the rest of you who haven't spoken, with the exception of Hannah at Vins, all either pre-cycling or about to start pre-cycling?
I'm pre-cycling, and listening to this conversation makes me realize that there's a lot I need to go back and pay attention to. So that's why I'm quiet. I'm taking lots of notes.
That's good.
I've been pre-cycling. We found out that the ammonia on Friday, we found out it was quite high. So the class did about a 75% water change. But I was actually not in today, so I haven't been able to test it.
Have you added the night out too, Justin?
I don't have the night out.
Okay.
I've been using Stress Coat. I don't know if that's recommended.
Yeah, it's from Top Fin. I know the brand.
But I can buy some.
Yeah, there's another. The Stress Coat is a little different. It doesn't have both bacteria in it, so you're gonna need.
Okay, I can get the night out.
Yeah, I would. I would encourage the night out. It's one of the better products that has both species of bacteria that we need. Topfin does make an equivalent. I can't remember what they call it off the top of my head, but if you can just get some night out, it'll really help.
Okay, thanks.
And Rob, could you remind us why we are adding night out or its equivalent?
Yeah, so the night out too, it's literally live cultures of these bacteria to jumpstart the cycling. So otherwise, I mean, these bacteria are all over, and they eventually will, like when they come, they're on the eggs that come from the fish hatchery, for example, and that can be enough to seed the tank. But pre-cycling, by adding these cultures directly to the tank, you're providing this basically key component of the microbiome of the tank before your eggs and fish get there, so that chemistry can handle all the waste and organic material that's going to be added to your tank as soon as those eggs enter. So rather than having a race between when the eggs hatch or when those bacteria get going, it's good to do this now, because you can also do it at higher tank temperatures, which promotes the growth of the bacteria. So, but yeah, that night out too, and the equivalent, these are live cultures. They're live bacteria in there. Yeah.
So,
Nick, yeah, go ahead, Nick.
My program at Oxbow, we got delayed in our purchasing because we were trying to mess with grants and stuff that didn't end up working out. So I have my tank. It's not set up yet. I'm hopefully getting it set up this week. But I live close enough to the school and I'm not leaving where I'm going to be monitoring it closely over the break. So hopefully I'll have numbers soon.
So
yeah, it can go really fast. When you hit it just right, it can go really fast. Some of the issues that we were talking about right at the start with Ari and Sam, I wish those strips were more precise. They're sufficient for keeping your fish safe, but we used to use the liquid testing kits, which are a little bit more precise, but you can start fast. You can cycle your tank in 5 to 7 days if it goes really well. And I always tell people some bacteria is better than none. If you start cycling now, you will have some in the tank, and that's better than nothing. So.
I have a question. I got my tank set up for the first time, and I had some students who set up the filter system, and it came with its own kind of like charcoal system, but we also have the ChemiPure system. Should I use both or one or the other?
Use the ChemiPure. You could save the other for an emergency, which I don't anticipate. I wouldn't throw it away, but you don't need to use both. The ChemiPure is a better product than the charcoal that came with your filter. Well, if there are no other questions about recycling, I'm going to give you a hall pass.
Thank you,
Rob, and thank you for coming. And you go off and pick up your kid as you need to.
Yeah,
and we will
kids at 3 different schools with a sick wife. Yeah.
Christina, did you raise your hand? No.
I just wanted to tell everybody I'm happy to look at numbers, so you can email through Joe, and I'm happy to respond and give you feedback on your pre-cycling. So good luck, everybody. Thanks for doing the program.
Yeah, and I just want to say Rob would also be happy to take your emails directly, but if you can copy me, I'll learn a little more by his response to you. So keep both of us in the loop if you would. And he's always going to ask you for the numbers, starting with temperature and right on down. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, everybody.
Happy holiday if I don't.
Yeah, hope you feel better soon, Joe.
Then. Yeah, here's a glimpse of our tree.
Oh, it's beautiful. Happy holidays, everybody.
So the other topic we've scheduled for this meeting is a temperature selection but we can also branch out from that if there are other issues or topics you want to get into. I think you're all aware that when your eggs arrive, you will want to have your tank at something close to the hatchery temperature. And most likely that's going to be something like 44 or 45 degrees. And the fish can tolerate a temperature, an abrupt temperature change of as much as 4 or 5 degrees, maybe even more. I mean, if you think about what happens in nature, there are days that start out pretty darn cold, and a few hours later, the air might be 30 degrees warmer, and the water will probably be 10 or 15 degrees warmer, at least at the surface. So we don't have to exactly match it, but we can't get, if you're getting eggs that have been used to 44 degrees and you plop them into 52-degree water, that would be a shock. But the big concern is that you need to have a life, and you can't spend your time glued to your tank and looking for the very subtle signs of what's called the swim up process. So rather than have you worrying whether it's going to happen in 10 days and 20 days or 30 days, we have these spreadsheets that allow you to keep track of their rate of development so that you can predict when they should be starting to swim up. I tried to explain this all in the PDF I sent you last Thursday. There's also an extensive section of it in the manual, but let me just start with inviting you to ask whatever questions you have about that whole process.
Can I ask a question, Joe?
Please do, Kim.
So I don't have my notes with me right now, but isn't there a certain number that if you're keeping track each day, there's a certain number when the swim up should happen?
Yes. We started using a very old table that Jeremy Whalen had acquired. He wasn't even sure the source of it. And to this day, I'm not sure where it originated, but it presumed that the swim up would occur when the eggs were developed, when the alevin were developed to 100%. The first couple of years that we worked with the table, we discovered that was too late. It was actually occurring more like 85%. That's when it started at some schools, and by 93%, it had pretty much happened everywhere. So that's the range that we have identified for you being particularly vigilant for the evidence, the visual evidence that the fish are ready to start eating. And this is all predicated on the assumption that you have good temperature numbers. If you were to stop recording and entering the data on temperature, you would have no basis for predicting the swim up unless you were a really experienced hatchery worker, because they know what to look for and they can see it in their sleep. Does everybody know the spreadsheets that I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've seen them before.
Yeah. And you know that there are basically two ways to use it. There's the use it to predict, for you to decide when they swim up, and using it to tell when they're about to swim up. But they have to be in conjunction. So these are the instructions. You've got two sets. This is tab B. And this you start filling in on the first day your eggs arrive. And this number right here, the development index on arrival, will be provided by your egg deliverer, or should be. If they don't give you that number, say, aren't you supposed to give me a DI number before they leave? And that gets plugged in here, and then your temperature on the day they arrived is here. And for every other day, you plug it in, including on the weekend. But if you had a particular date, I'm going to move this out of the way here. When you wanted them to start swimming up, to start feeding, you can use this format. So you enter the day that you're using this form, the date you want them to swim up, the DI that you've entered for the date up here, and bingada bingada, this will tell you what temperature you should set your tank at. Now, I always tell teachers, don't exclusively rely on this, because if anything goes wrong, if someone changes the temperature setting on your chiller, or you are not able to be observant, be at your school at all on the date that you had predicted on this form, you may need to have plan B. And that's where, if you're keeping this table with all your temperatures, including for the days you're not able to read the temperature, you're putting in estimates for those days, you will still be able to make this work. You could still, for example, template with a different preferred day. Unless you want to ask a question about this spreadsheet, I'll stop sharing. So those of you who have done this before, what's your experience been with Swim Up?
We've had really good luck with it. I think, as I remember, it's been a few years, but watching them, giving them opportunity, and then removing the excess. And just like, the problem is, of course, making sure it's not over school break, and setting off the school alarm like I used to do. But it was fairly easy for us to, as long as you caught it, it was easy to tell. And a very exciting time. It's probably one of the most exciting times, I think, of one of the most nerve-wracking times of doing this program.
Definitely nerve-wracking.
And just to remind myself, when we're expecting this to be somewhere around late April, early May. When should I aim for Swim Up? A date that I should have in mind to fit it around my school breaks?
Well, let me take us back to the PDF. That offers two scenarios, which are here. So you have choices. You push it by raising the temperature to 55 degrees very quickly. That's going up about 3 degrees a day. And if you do that, your swim up should occur somewhere in early February. I'm predicting February 3rd through 7th. Now, this is based on the assumptions that I've plugged in here. They arrive on the 9th. It'll be the week of the 9th. It could be later that week. And that the DI, when they arrive, is 44. I'm pretty sure that's what the DI is going to be. There may be some variation in the day you get your eggs as opposed to the way when they're delivered to other parts of the state. The other alternative is down here. That's the cool and slow. If you want to do this so that they swim up after your winter break, then you keep the tank cool at 44 degrees for most of the time, right up through March 6th. And if that's the case, then they will hit that sweet spot of 85 to 93 somewhere in the second week of March.
I have a question, Joe, about that.
Yeah.
Which I just with winter break, I probably want to go cold and slow, but what has better results? I mean, is there one that will get you slightly better, or is there really no difference?
Well, the short answer is I don't know. There's no literature on this that I'm aware of, and we haven't done the analyses and collected the data to do our own study. The only factor that I think could matter, and I wish Rob were here for this purpose, has to do with those bacteria. You get those bacteria growing during, before the eggs arrive. And then the temperature is, in the 70s to maybe 75. And then you turn the temperature down to whatever it's going to be when you receive your eggs, say 45 or 47 or something like that. As far as I can tell, those bacteria go into a kind of hibernation state. And my instinct tells me keeping them hibernating for too long may not be desirable. But that's just an instinct. Does anyone have any comments based on their experience? I guess I'm not over my COVID. Other thoughts, observations, questions, and comments about temperature and swim up?
I don't. Oh, go ahead.
Brian, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to take up all the airtime, but I'm another reason. Like I almost about not going quickly is when the trout get bigger, the tank is harder to clean. It takes more maintenance. More opportunities for them to eat each other, that sort of thing. And do we only get 100 eggs now? Is that true? As opposed, we got 150, yes. I think, before. So I'm just super nervous about having a lower egg count. And so if I have them, if I raise them quickly and make them bigger, is that a little bit more challenging to keep that tank with bigger fish up to fry for longer, right?
I'm prepared to comment on that, but I first want to give people on the call the opportunity. So Caitlin says, I've always skipped pre-cycling and, excuse me, I'm having trouble reading it. Small print. Done the low and slow and had 2 years of extremely successful yields, 85%, and 1 year of 90% die-off, the year we had main eggs. So that's one comment on one teacher's experience in 2 years. It's a choice, Brian, and it's yours to make. And one of the factors here is your comfort level. I happen to be probably inclined to go towards getting them to grow bigger, not because of the size, but because of the behavioral changes that take place, precisely like the ones that you mentioned, cannibalism. In one of the early programs that was in Vermont that wasn't Trout in the Classroom was called the Adopt a Salmon program, and that kept the tank cold right to the end. And as a result, there was very little die-off, but the kids did not see the the morphological changes that take place, the color changes that take the patterns that develop that prepare them to be well camouflaged on the bottom of the stream. When they kept them this small, almost none of that was visible. And there's a lot of learning potential in the changes that take place as they get bigger, and including the behavioral changes, their conduct towards each other, the dominant hierarchies and things of that sort. We've had lots of teachers grow big trout, and somehow it worked. Tiffany Tucker is not on the call, but as I recall, last year her fish were probably about 2.5 inches big on average, and some maybe over 3. That's rather remarkable. When you have fish that are really starting to become fingerlings, you can do things that you couldn't otherwise do. For example, you can bring in macroinvertebrates from a local stream. And I've done this with classes. I've said, okay, so ask the kids, I said, your fish have been eating what? What do you feed them? And they show me the fish food that looks like, ground up coffee or something. And I say, so what are they going to eat when they get out in the streams? Well, they usually know by then they're going to eat macroinvertebrates, like we just collected and classified in the class previously. I say, well, how long is it going to take them to learn to eat natural food in the stream? And the kids' guesses are just all over the place. Some will say they'll do it right away. Some of them will say it'll take a month. And I say, well, let's find out. And I'll give the kids macroinvertebrate, and we'll stand by the tank and they'll pour a little piece of glass, jigger of water with a macroinvertebrate in it, and bang. Instantaneously, these fish that have never seen a macroinvertebrate in their life figure out what to do with it. And that's the kind of thing that happens if you get them to a larger size, to a later stage of development. But it does potentially carry risks, although especially with pre-cycling, I'm worried less about the chemical worries of water quality. But there is more cleaning involved, that's for sure. But some kids love the cleaning. When you first ask them to siphon the tank, they'll wince. But after a while, they want to do it even when it doesn't need siphoning.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I think you might want to think about as a teacher with this, whether you go fast or slow, is kind of when you want to release, because, some of you may be in places where your streams are going to be releasable, maybe by late April. Some of you may be in places where it may be early June. So it's going to be later, early June or something like that. Then even if you go kind of the slow route, you still have an opportunity to watch the fish kind of mature and get into different stages. If you're thinking that you'd like to release in early to mid-May, then you may want to go a little bit faster. Just so that's something to think about. It's like where are you gonna release the little buggers.
So here's a comment, I think, from Hannah. You have to tell them it's from Caitlin. You have to tell them it's satisfying, and then they'll be fighting to vacuum the tank.
I have a bunch of questions. And they're sort of all over the map, but one of the questions I have, and you can send me to a different resource if you want, is what exactly does development index mean and how is it calculated? So I can understand more about what's going on in the spreadsheet, because I'm not quite seeing the relation. Maybe I'm being really thick here, but I can't quite see the relationship between the series of temperatures and the involvement of the development index as to when we'll see swim up. So I'm wondering mathematically what's going on.
Yes, let's try to tackle that. No, I shared the wrong desktop image with you. Not that one, this one. This one. So I can send you a table, which is what I inherited from Jeremy Whalen. But I took that to my favorite statistician at Castleton State College, where I worked for 32 years, Abbas Raji, who's going to be cheering for Morocco. Is it Morocco tomorrow or Wednesday? And he found a quadratic equation in the data. And this is the data essentially from a table strung out into a long list. If you go to the data entry, and look at one of these cells under DI added to date, and see, look at the formula in the entrance bar up there. That utilizes the values that he determined were built into that quadratic equation. And what it means is that, I'm going the wrong way here. Sorry. To simplify it, the changes that are introduced by 1 degree differences at the lower end of the temperature range. Here you see the difference between 32 degrees and 32.1 is 0.25, right? When you start getting up in the temperature scale, those numbers get bigger. And eventually, I wish I had my mouse. Here we are at 48 degrees. Now we're adding 1 point. Increase the view in this. You see how much more we're adding?
Yep.
As the every 1/10 of a degree is now adding, 1.226 once we're in that range. So there's no nothing short of a quadratic equation that can capture the complexity of the relationship between temperature and development.
Okay, thank you.
You had questions?
Yeah, I had another question when you were talking about release. I didn't see any sort of expectations in the manual about where we could release. And so it sounds like it's really up to us to find a stream nearby. Is that fairly true?
Yes.
Okay.
In the old days, we used to have to propose a stream to the Fish and Wildlife Department, and they would send that to their regional biologist, and that person would consider whether that was a desirable stream into which to release the brook trout, because they don't want to put what are in effect stocked fish. These are fish that originate the hatchery over a native strain, a naturally producing native strain. But now they give us infertile eggs. The eggs that we get, and we'll be talking about this in an upcoming blog, are what are called triploids. So these fish cannot reproduce. And once they moved us to triploid eggs, they didn't care where we put them because they're not going to be spawning with the native population. Yeah, it's sometimes it's obvious where you should release your fish. I know schools that literally are on the banks of a great trout stream. And it doesn't have to be a sizable stream. A stream that's 2.5 feet wide can be perfect if it's cold water and it has some protection for the fish, and there's no, it hasn't been polluted in any discernible way. That can be fine. I think one of the first priorities ought to be how easy is it for your kids to get to the stream, both as a part of your school at the program, but also outside of school. So Kim, who's still on the call, can walk her class down to the Neshabie River. That's ideal. They can go to that, not just on release day, but they could go to that many times a year if they wanted to, if Kim wanted to. And it builds a connection with that watershed for the kid. That's, I think, an important part of what can be gotten from this program. If you,
you wouldn't want to choose, I wouldn't want to choose something that's at the bottom of my valley that might have farm runoff in it.
No, you would not.
Yeah. Okay.
But there are undoubtedly tributaries of that stream at the bottom of your valley that are purer.
Yeah. Yep.
Christina, where are you again?
Weybridge, which is in the Lemon Fair, Otter Creek area. So
yeah, you have lower gradient and warmer streams. Yeah, so you may want to. Who's the person that you work with in the chapter that helps you with your program? Or
Christina doesn't have such a person at this point.
Yeah. So
I brought them their chiller because Ed Collins wasn't able to find a volunteer for them. What I would
go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say that the other streams like yours, Sudbury, Cornwall, etc., typically go up into, for example, the Middlebury River watershed.
Right.
The Robert Frost way station on Route 125 is a fabulous place. It's got great stuff to see, to do, easy access for the kids, even younger kids. And there are a lot of organizations in that area, including New Haven Rivers Anglers Association, as well as the Audubon Society, that have worked with other Addison County schools in very supportive ways on field trips and things of that sort. And I think I can probably get you some connections for those.
Yeah, I mean, the New Haven, above Bristol would be another place too. That could work.
Yeah, I have connections with the Audubon Society, so that would be easy for me to do. I do have a question about the infertility of the eggs. Is the purpose of that so that we can learn about the development of fish in our streams and water quality, and then they just go off, if they survive my parentage, they go off and they become somebody else's food? Is that, and how long do they live in a stream? I know my students will be wondering about that.
It's a potentially very controversial issue. And at one of our fall retreats, we got into it. I think it's great. It opens up a lot of questions, including for the kids. I think the short answer is, I'm not sure in terms of why is Fish and Wildlife doing this. The whole issue of stocking has gone through a rather massive reconsideration over the last 100+ years. And if you've been reading my blog, you know that we began stocking more or less because we had to, because we had wiped out the fish populations of so many of our streams. And at the time, nobody really thought about the issue of natives and invasives. But now we think a lot about that. And the idea that there could be a native population that has a heritage strain of genetics is become quite exciting to folks. And I haven't heard any large-scale discussions of this in Vermont, but there are groups in Vermont and in many other states that are very critical of stocking. And one way to minimize the negative impacts of stocking is to stock sterile fish. Mm-hmm. But I can't stop there. The fact is that the energy that a sterile fish doesn't put into reproduction goes somewhere else. It goes into growth. And my understanding is that the sterile fish, the triploid fish that are stocked, can become larger than the native fish of their same age and can outcompete them for holding spaces in rivers and food and other things. So it's not without its downside. But I suspect that we could arrange to have someone like Tom Jones from the Fish and Wildlife Department have a chat with your kids about this.
I think that would be fabulous. Right around March. Yeah. Or, later on in the year when they really have started to see growth and development. It's going to be a little tricky with the insulation around everything for a long time, but I think that'd be lovely.
Yeah. And by the way, once the fish are eating, you can remove the front insulation all day long.
Okay.
I think I think one of the things you got to realize, if you're going to be a trout in the classroom teacher, you've got to embrace stocking, because unless you're just going to, turn the chiller off in your tank, then you've got to, your fish are going to be in there, and they'll be most likely with some native fish around, and hopefully they won't do what Jeff Goldblum worries about in Jurassic Park, and that nature will find a way. So anyway, I think you're pretty safe. AAA trout, I mean, and some of them hopefully will, get up to catchable size, or reasonable size, put it that way.
Back to one of your embedded questions there, Christina. I've been told that by Fish and Wildlife staff that the stocked fish rarely survive a year in the wild. And that presumably is because they're dumber than native fish.
That statement brings up so many reactions. Great.
So one of the comments is, once the fish are feeding, the only reason, there are two reasons to keep the foam board on the tank. One is to reduce the cooling costs, and the other is to prevent tons of condensation when the cold water of the tank is, encounters the warm air of your room. But otherwise, they don't need to be in the dark any longer. They do in those first weeks before they swim up. Okay, I figured this was a topic that might require an hour. We have a couple more minutes for final question or two, if anyone has one. In that case, I'm going to end the meeting, say goodbye, and wish you all best luck. But don't reach out. Don't neglect to reach out if you have any concerns, questions, follow-ups, etc. Our volunteers, including Clark and Rob and I and a bunch of others, are here for you to try to support you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.